Noise, not bias, noise. Noise is the hidden spread inside serious decisions. This book, Noise, by Daniel Kahneman, Olivier Sibony, and Cass R. Sunstein, isn't soft advice. It's a cold mirror, and it asks one brutal question. Would your decision survive another version of you?
Okay, let's really dive into this. You keep fixing yourself when the scale is drifting. That is the trap. This book, Noise, by Daniel Kahneman, Olivier Sibony, and Cass R. Sunstein, doesn't say you're careless. It says your process might be unstable, which, honestly, is actually worse. You see, a careless person can be blamed, but an unstable system can look completely noble. You might be highly skilled, you might be incredibly honest, you've truly earned your seat, but none of that guarantees repeatability. It's like an exceptionally rare violin that still goes entirely out of tune. A court can be deeply solemn and still vary its judgments wildly by the lunch hour. This is exactly why the pain feels so strange. You don't feel corrupt, you just feel tired. You keep adding effort where design is missing. You furiously polish the handle while the hinge drifts.
So here is the UpGo Wise challenge. For the next few minutes, don't defend your judgment. Watch its architecture. Watch where the beams bend. Watch where your mood enters as evidence and where your confidence paints over the spread. UpGo Wise is practice, not product. So let's practice this right now. Think of one decision you consistently repeat. Hiring, pricing, grading, investing, diagnosing? Pick one. Keep it firmly in mind. Hold it there. We're going to return to it later. The frightening thing here isn't that two people disagree. Life handles disagreement just fine. The terrifying thing is that the exact same case can receive completely different futures. Same facts, same policy, same title on the door. Different call. That isn't drama. That is noise.
Your default habit is probably to just try harder, but the mechanism of this book is much harsher. Working harder at judgment can actually amplify random variation. You inspect more but not cleaner. You think longer but not straighter. You end up adding reasons after the feeling has already landed. And then there's occasion noise. That means the exact same person changes across moments. The morning self, the Friday self, the hungry self, the praise self. Each one can sound like the real judge, and each one can vote differently. You aren't only inconsistent with others, you can be profoundly inconsistent with you.
And this brilliantly illustrates the crucial divide. This book separates two fundamental failures. Bias is direction, noise is spread. Bias says the scale leans left. Noise says the scale gives totally different weights at different hours. Bias has a villain. It has a recognizable face and an easy story. Noise just has a range. People easily see direction because direction creates compelling narratives. Spread, though, feels like randomness, so it effortlessly disguises itself as professionalism. If you only ever look for the villain, you will completely miss the hidden spread that's destroying your system.
Listen to your own expert voice for a second. My judgment is mostly solid. I just need better information and sharper focus. Look, that belief deserves respect. It honors your effort, your craft, your attention. Better information absolutely helps. But let's walk that belief forward to its logical collapse. If judgment is mostly solid, the exact same case should get the exact same treatment. If it doesn't, the problem isn't just missing information. The measuring instrument itself is moving. This book makes an ugly move here. It forcefully removes your favorite explanation. Think of insurance pricing or sentencing or hiring. If two highly trained people see the exact same file and diverge wildly, the institution has a fundamental measurement problem. The agenda might be perfectly clean, but the spread is not.
Here are the two losing options you've likely been taught. Option 1, trust expert intuition, because humans uniquely see nuance. Option 2, replace judgment with rigid rules, because humans swing far too much. Choose one. Well, they both lose. The first option worships the judge. The second option fears the judge. Both keep the judge at the absolute center. The answer, the resolution to this dilemma, is structured discretion. Put structure before intuition. Then let expertise work safely inside a frame. The frame isn't a cage, it's a load-bearing wall. It carries the immense pressure so the person doesn't have to constantly pretend to be made of steel.
So the crucial point is this: pause the book in your mind. Picture that repeated decision you chose earlier. Where does the first impression stealthily enter? Where does the loudest fact completely dominate and hijack the whole call? Where does the group start agreeing just a little too fast? Sincerity cannot cancel spread. You thought exhaustion meant you were serious. You thought absolute strain proved your integrity. But maybe strain just means the process is asking your mood to do structural work. A system can look perfectly fair, noble, and polished, while secretly swinging wildly.
Imagine a magnificent courthouse built just 1 degree off plumb. The marble still shines. The massive oak doors still close perfectly. The brass plaque on the wall proudly says justice. But every single load travels wrong. The weight distribution is fundamentally compromised. That is judgment without hygiene. It is judgment without a true frame.
A tilted judgment scale can still look beautifully elegant. The expert voice naturally protests and says, "Hey, do not reduce me to a checklist." And that's fair. No serious professional wants dead robotic procedure. But follow the logic here. If the work truly matters, why trust it to mood, to order effects, to decision fatigue, and to social heat? The more valuable a judgment becomes, the more structural protection it absolutely needs from the weather inside the room. Expertise without scaffolding is inherently fragile.
This is where we introduce the critical architecture, decision hygiene. It means preventing judgment contamination before it ever begins. Once a story forms in your mind, your brain instantly starts recruiting evidence to support it. It doesn't feel like active recruitment. It feels like brilliant, undeniable clarity. That's exactly why late structure is so incredibly weak. It just decorates the intuition you already decided on. Early structure is entirely different. It slows down the first story. It stops one single vivid fact from becoming the whole house.
Decision hygiene gives us these exact, unyielding structural moves. 1. Split the criteria. Break the complex decision down into distinct parts. 2. Score independently. Keep each criterion in its own isolated room before anyone speaks, and especially before the highest-paid person in the room speaks. 3. Delay the global impression. Aggregate the scores before you debate. Now, these moves sound remarkably plain, which is exactly why your professional pride naturally resists them. But a building doesn't ask a beam to simply feel more committed to holding weight. It fundamentally changes the frame. A fair game doesn't move the foul line just because the referee is tired. The master builder always uses a level to protect the pristine building from their own blind spots.
You use calendars, recipes, maps, and alarms every single day. You don't call them insults to your intelligence. You proudly call them tools. Yet when judgment gets prestigious and the stakes get high, you hide the tool and perform absolute certainty. Let's decisively reverse that pride right now. A checklist is not for weak minds. It is for dangerous decisions. It is not anti-intuition. It is fiercely anti-contamination.
And this brings us to the profound philosophical bruise of this book, the hidden devastating cost. Noise so often hides perfectly inside words we deeply admire. Words like flexibility, context, deep judgment, the human touch, empathy. Those words can indeed protect mercy, absolutely, but they can just as easily protect inconsistency. This book does not tell you to become a cold machine. It tells you to stop confusing temperature with justice. A remarkably warm decision can still be dangerously unstable, and a remarkably cold process can still powerfully protect people from arbitrary fate.
See how this builds into our second great dilemma. Option 1, demand deep empathy in every single judgment. Option 2, demand rigid consistency in every single judgment. Choose one. They both lose again. Empathy without structure simply becomes weather. Consistency without context simply becomes machinery. The stronger, elevated move is sequenced judgment. First, decide what absolutely must be stable. Then, decide exactly where human discretion belongs. Mercy clearly belongs where mercy is carefully named. Structure rigidly belongs where fairness must absolutely not depend on who walked into the room first.
The strike zone can have a tiny margin of judgment, but it cannot have a completely different shape for each pitcher. A lane can temporarily forgive the wind, but it cannot shift for favorites. Fairness is essentially controlled variation. The person completely outside your system feels your mood swing as an unavoidable, unfair fate. One applicant gets a generous, highly caffeinated reader. Another applicant gets an exhausted, frustrated reader. One patient gets a cautious doctor. Another gets a dangerously bold one. Nobody sees the lottery happening behind closed doors, but everyone deeply feels the result. What would your absolute best judgment look like if your mood wasn't even allowed in the room?
You are not fundamentally broken. The scale was just drifting. That realization doesn't excuse your past choices, but it forcefully redirects your future work. And here's the sharp reality check this book leaves us to grapple with. If your process cannot be repeated, maybe your fairness is actually just a feeling.
We return to the first thread, that specific repeated decision. It's been sitting quietly in the background of your mind since we started. You know the one. You also know exactly where it naturally bends. Don't choose the most dramatic decision of your career right now. Choose the one that repeats enough to actually teach you something. Repetition gives the internal audit something to finally see.
It gives your practice a reliable track to run on.
Maybe your decision bends toward the very first story told in the room, maybe toward status, maybe toward fatigue. Pick just one architectural beam to redesign, not the whole massive building, just one beam. Criteria before conversation, independent score before the meeting, delayed impression, a shared, clearly defined scale. The first checklist you build can be genuinely ugly. It might have just 3 criteria. The point is simply a foothold against the fog. You don't need to be a flawless, heroic judge. You just need to build a stronger frame.
A professional life is entirely full of repeated judgments. Every repeated judgment builds either deep systemic trust or dense systemic fog. The old model made you the solitary hero, relying purely on your own exhausting force. This book makes you the architect, relying on strong, repeatable frames. A hero saves a fleeting moment. A meticulously built frame protects the next 100 moments. Do not make yourself carry what a brilliantly designed system should carry. UpGoWise turns this profound theory into concrete internal transformation. Access your growth map.
Because when unstructured judgment rules the day, your totally arbitrary, fluctuating mood looks perfectly like permanent wisdom to the outside world. It leaves the people relying on your system entirely at the mercy of unstructured chance. Noise makes fairness feel personal.
This is the decision. Make it now. If not now, not ever. Name one decision you will turn into a checklist.